just going to set it up like this. So, hello. Oh, we have 3 people.
Hi there.
Good afternoon. So, my name is Robert Buxton. I play classical piano. At the end, I probably will do a little Southern gospel improvisation, which is another thing I do, but mainly classical. And I'll talk about the music. And like I said, it's nice. It's a small group, so it's informal. I'm going to start with a quick story, which is that when the pandemic started, I wanted to switch instruments to violin. And the reason is I saw a documentary called The Art of Violin. It's on YouTube. It's a PBS documentary. And in that documentary, you get to know Jascha Heifetz, Nathan Milstein, Yehudi Menuhin, all these great violinists of the past. And I was just so moved by it. And my wife's a pianist, so I told her this. I said, I want to switch. She said, oh, I know someone who did that. They had to practice sort of 15 hours a day. It took about 10 years. I said, well, and we had just had our first kid, so I said, I just don't have it in me. Maybe I'm lazy, I don't know. I can't do that. So plan B would be to play music connected to the violin, arranged for the piano, which I'm going to do now. There's plenty of arrangements by the likes of Liszt and Rachmaninoff, and so that was, for me, a very good plan B. And the art of arrangement or transcription is something I love because you can pretend to be something you're not, essentially. You can take, for example, Liszt arranged a lot of opera, paraphrases from opera, channeling what the human voice does into the piano. So it's just something that's very versatile, and it's akin to translations in literature, because in literature you have a text, I don't know, like Tolstoy or Bulgakov in Russian, and then it takes a very, very good writer, it takes a very good writer or thinker to translate it into English. Because translation in literature is not the same thing as Google Translate. It's like, oh, look, I'm explaining that I'm playing arrangements of vocal and mostly violin music for piano, and then at the end I'll do some Southern gospel improv. So, but arrangement in music is like translation, and a good translator is also a good writer. Because Google Translate will do each word by word. But in music, in a good translation, it's changed a bit to make it work in the new language. So anyway, I'm going to start with a piece you don't hear every day. It's actually a vocal work that violinists love to play. And it's called Song of the Seashore by the Japanese composer Narita Tamezo from about 100 years ago or so. And also, I forgot to, I really want to thank Erica for having me and setting this up. So if we can give her some applause. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Do a little sound check. I probably don't need this for now. Just temporarily a little bit. All right. How does this sound? A little. Can you hear it? All right. It's the first one. Yes, thank you. Thanks. It's a beautiful melody, this one, originally for voice. Next I'm going to play, so as like I mentioned, this program I'm doing, it's all somehow related to the violin, or the fiddle as we call it around here, is what it is. So next is a piece by Felix Mendelssohn, and it's called May Breezes. Mendelssohn was from what's now Germany. It wasn't exactly Germany, I guess it was Saxony at that time. Born in 1809, and he lived a very short life. I think he died when he was 39 or something, which is just unthinkable. Mendelssohn was, of course, a romantic composer. Sadly, he faced a lot of persecution as he was Jewish, and anti-Semitism was rampant at that time too. So he faced that, and I would say that his style. First of all, he was a child prodigy, and I had a professor who said Mendelssohn was more Mozartian than Mozart himself. In other words, Mendelssohn was proven to be a prodigy. I'm not saying Mozart was not, but some scholars have found that Leopold, who was Mozart's daddy, wrote a lot of those pieces that we thought the 3 or 4-year-old Mozart actually wrote. Doesn't take away from Mozart's genius at all. But Mendelssohn probably was writing all this stuff when he was 3 or 4. But what I love about Mendelssohn is that it's like he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's very direct, and there's no fakeness in his writing. You hear it, he's very sincere. Now, why is this called May Breezes? I think it's because the accompaniment, which is in the left hand, sounds like these spring breezes that kind of waft through the air. It's also not the notes only, but in the rhythm. The rhythm should not be boom, boom, but it has to be sort of, like that. So here is Mendelssohn's May Breezes. How does it have to do with violin? This is for the piano originally, but Fritz Kreisler arranged it for violin, and you normally hear it on the violin, so that's why I play. So jumping around historically, we're going to go back a little bit to Bach. I'm going to play, this is the Gavotte in the form of a rondo by Johann Sebastian Bach, originally for solo violin, but here it's arranged for piano by the Russian composer Sergei Rachmaninoff. So talk about Bach first and then Rachmaninoff, because this music is maybe, I would say, 50% Bach, 50% Rachmaninoff. Bach was born in 1685, died in 1750. And I think what's important to note is that although Bach was, in this piece, it's a secular dance. A gavotte was a dance that was popular in that time period. He was a church musician, and he was very religious. And there's a writer, a musicologist, I think, a writer who said that these solo suites for solo cello and solo violin by Bach, they represent some biblical scene. And it's a very interesting idea. I haven't quite figured out what this one is. If you have an idea, tell me. But that's, of course, just a theory, but it's interesting. I had a teacher who said, maybe the same one who said about medicine, that behind Bach's music is the Protestant hymn, almost like wallpaper, like wallpaper. It's there in the background. So that's Bach. Sergei Rachmaninoff lived in the 20th century. He was closer to our times. And I have a story about him that illustrates his character in a way. He was 6.5 feet tall. He was Russian. He had a shaved head, and some people said that he looked like an escaped convict. I mean, he was a very imposing and threatening guy. Never smiled in photographs, remember. So my mother's Russian, but that's another story. But my father is from southeastern Virginia, not too far from here. So his father was an usher as a young man at a concert series in Richmond, Virginia. It's long ago in the 30s. He's no longer living, unfortunately. And the recital was Sergei Rachmaninoff. Can you believe? I mean, I don't know what I would give to hear Rachmaninoff. So my grandfather's backstage, and he's told, don't let anyone through these doors, okay? His boss told him. So a few minutes later, somebody tries to open the door, so my grandfather pushes against it. This person pushes, there's this tug of war thing that goes, and then wham, the person kicks the door open. It's Rachmaninoff, 6.5 feet tall. And I tell people this, I say, I should have said first that Rachmaninoff spoke to my grandfather. It's true, you know what he said? He said, get out of my way. So I have a personal connection to the history here. So here is the Rachmaninoff the Bach arranged by Rachmaninoff. And to simplify all that, some people call this Bachmaninoff because it's, It's interesting is it starts pretty much like Bach wrote for the violin. But by the end, you hear Rachmaninoff more. It's as if Rachmaninoff's taken over the piece. And it's Russian bells, Moscow or something, by the end. So just find that interesting. So next I'm going to do a few pieces that are really truly a bit crazier than what I've done so far. These are by Niccolo Paganini, the Italian violinist who lived at the end of the 18th century, early 19th century. Paganini was very controversial. Some people thought he was possessed. He was probably more like a rock star today, a classical musician. Even the way he looked was frightening. He had this kind of very long face that he looked, there's some, I think, early photos of him. Very unusual looking guy. So the story is that, so this is of course the original pieces are for violin, but Franz Liszt did the arrangements. So Liszt as a young man was living in Paris. And at a particularly low point in his life, actually, he heard Paganini perform. And this just inspired him so much that he locked himself in a room to practice like crazy for a few years. And then he emerged after that period as the Franz Liszt that we remember now. And the first thing he did was arrange Paganini's violin music for piano to translate the virtuosity on the violin to the piano. So I wonder if I should play 3 or 2 of them. Oh, maybe I'll do 3. So this first one is kind of gloomy. It reminds me, I can't explain why, but it just, once I went to Italy, I've been a couple of times, I love Italy, and I was there in early May, and so I went to, I was doing a piano thing up in the north, and I thought, well, let me go down to Florence, Tuscany, because I'd been there, and it's beautiful and sunny, but it wasn't that time of year. It was gray and scary. It was kind of like Halloween was coming up. It was in that vein. And I was standing in this small cathedral, and it was so eerie. I don't know. It was maybe just the weather was. And this piece of Paganini's, for some reason, it reminds me of that experience. It's called tremolo because what you hear is this, as a constant throughout, is this, that vibrating sound. That's a tremolo on the violin, you know, I can't do it, but. So anyway, here is the first of the Paganini studies or arrangements of Franz Liszt. It's
piano like that.
yes.
Are we allowed to ask questions?
Sure.
What is the tremolo? What Liszt added to make it for the piano?
That's a good point. Actually, it's not. It's there in the original violin version, but Liszt does add a lot of things because the violin doesn't do this. It doesn't do that. It's the range is not that, doesn't go that low. And I'm glad you asked that because it bridges it perfectly to the next piece, because the next one is, I'm going to do 3 of these. The second one is not changed that much from the original violin. I guess Liszt made that choice, that in the one I just did, it's completely different from the original. But this next one, it doesn't go lower than here. It's all up here. So why do arrangers do that? I don't know why, but it's interesting that it depends. Sometimes a translator wants to be almost verbatim, and sometimes they change a lot. So this next one, Paganini-Liszt. I forgot to mention I'm playing Busoni's version of Liszt's version of Liszt, so it's a double pasteurization of it. This one, when I learned it, I usually have an image or a story or something that comes to my mind when I learn a piece, and it makes me learn it essentially. But for this, I didn't. And so I asked my wife, who's a pianist, and I said, "What do you hear?" She doesn't love Paganini, by the way, I'll just point that out. And she said, "Oh, it's very simple, the opening is..." She said, "Oh, that's, we have 2 kids, but we have also 2 cats. So we have 4 kids, I tell people. And the youngest cat is a kitten. And he has this toy, it's like a merry-go-round thing. And he whacks it with his little paw, and it comes around, he whacks it. And he just does this all the time, all day, all night. And she said, that's the piece for me. I hear it, He's playing with his stupid toy, So I can't hear it any other way now. So, and I will point out that Paganini, I think it's funny, but it's also that I think Paganini has a great sense of humor. And there's a lot of wit, especially in this, a lot of almost sarcastic humor, which cats have as well. So anyway, here is the next one I'm going to do. So, crazy music. It's just, I don't know. And I also wonder, he must have liked coffee a lot because so caffeinated, this music. The final of the Paganinis I'm going to play, and then I'll play some more mellow things. This is La Campanella. It's a famous or maybe even infamous piece. And La Campanella means little bell. So you hear it in the upper range of the piano here, constantly. It's like a motif. There's another image I have for this, or sound rather, which is that it's not hot anymore, thankfully, but when it was warmer and I learned this piece, there were a lot of flies and mosquitoes, and I was outside, and I thought, it just sounds like some fly buzzing near your ear. It just has that sound to me at certain points in the piece. So this has a very sarcastic, caustic sense of humor. This I'll play you the melody. You've probably heard it before. It's pretty famous. This is originally the last movement of Paganini's Violin Concerto No. 2. But here, Liszt and Busoni, they changed it completely. It's just really like a set of variations or fantasia on the melody, really, the theme. It's kind of has nothing to do with the original. So here is the La Campanella by Paganini, arranged by Liszt and by Busoni. Crazy, crazy music. Thank you. Now something much more mellow. That's a workout there. This is a piece that we all know, but it's an unfamiliar arrangement, which is it's the Irish folk tune "O Danny Boy," Londonderry air, arranged for solo piano by the oddball Australian composer Percy Grainger. Why is this on a violin-related program? Because, well, a lot of violinists play this, but everyone plays this or sings this. The text of the song is probably about a father singing to his son who's going off to fight in the First World War. I think knowing that adds a layer of depth to the meaning of the words. This is also, this melody is reused in many forms. It's a hymn called, I think it's called "He Looked Beyond My Fault." That's the same melody here. So this is Percy Grainger's classical piano version of "O Danny Boy." play some French music. I don't want to overstay my welcome, but I have a few more things if that's okay. So this is a piece by French composer Cécile Chaminade. We don't hear her music enough. She's a wonderful composer from the turn of the last century. And well, I said French music, but I guess I kind of lied. This is called Serenade Espagnole, which means Spanish serenade. The French have an obsession with Spanish culture. The best probably example in music is Carmen, the opera Carmen by Georges Bizet, because Georges Bizet was French, and Carmen is a very Spanish-themed opera. So this piece, originally she wrote it for the voice as a song. Fritz Kreisler arranged it for violin, and then Chaminade herself rearranged it into this solo piano version. So it went around the block a few times. You hear Spanish flamenco here, you know, the sound of the flamenco guitar. And, you know, flamenco is connected to the music, the Arabic music, Middle Eastern music, because Spain was Moorish for a long, I mean, in the Middle Ages it was, and that the architecture of southern Spain in particular is completely similar to what's in the Middle East, and the music has that, you know, that idea is very Spanish, you know, the guitar and everything. So, very sunny piece, the Serenade Espagnole by Chaminade. Just want to ask, how much time do I have? Just
However much.
however, I mean, I don't know how. Okay, I have a few things then before I do some gospel improvisation, and I'll talk about the history of it as well. Okay, let's go around the world a little more. This is the 6 Romanian folk dances by Bela Bartok. Bela Bartok was from Hungary. And as a young man, he traveled with his friend Zoltan Kodaly throughout Eastern Europe with an early version of the tape recorder. And he recorded people singing folk songs in villages. Sadly, these traditions were and continue to this day, they're kind of dwindling and dying out. And so he caught a lot of these recordings. I mean this about folk music from all over the world. And Bartók and Kodály sort of created the study of folk music or ethnomusicology as a field. Now these pieces are not literally folk melodies, they're based on what he heard. It's his own creation, but it's based on what he heard. And they have these wonderful titles. They're very, very short, like snapshots, you know. The first one is called, I can illustrate each one. The first one's called Stick Game. I guess it's something children would play, you know. The second one is called, I think it's called Peasant Costume. And you hear this music, Hungarian, Romanian music, it's a mix of klezmer music, of gypsy music. It's a melting pot, really. The next one is perfect for, well, Halloween coming up. It's called Standing Still. It's very creepy, you know, it's like this. I think my head can start turning, you know. I think Frankenstein, the story was set somewhere, Transylvania. It's kind of near there geographically. So the next one is a beautiful lyrical piece called the Mountain Horn Song. There's the klezmer music. So next is a piece called Romanian Garden Gate. It's a very lively dance. That's a scale that's called the Lydian mode. If anyone watches a lot of TV, the Simpsons theme uses that same scale. And anyway, that's just a different note. Because probably that composer studied Bartók. I bet whoever wrote that piece. Then the last one's called Little One, and it's so I told people in places I've played this, some people find this to be strange because Bartók was an avant-garde. He was an experimental composer, sort of, like you see these abstract paintings. He was writing a lot of very gnarly dissonant music, stuff like that. This is pretty listenable for Bartók, but it still has those, you know, those dissonant things. I just say if you like to eat Texas Pete or Tabasco sauce, think of it as musical hot sauce. Some people like, I happen to like hot sauce on everything, but anyways, here are the Bartók Romanian folk dances, and I hope you love them as much as I do. I love them very much. So. Yeah. I told you it's different. So the final classical piece I'm going to play is by Camille Saint-Saëns. It's called Étude en forme de valse, study in the form of a waltz. I call it, it's a sort of a waltz and it's a sort of a not a waltz. This is very influenced by Liszt, but Saint-Saëns was interesting. He was, in addition to being a musician, an archaeologist, a mathematician, a philosopher. He did all these things. He was an animal rights activist in the 1800s. And he was a child prodigy. The story about him is he played his first recital when he was 10 years old. And at the end of this concert, he said to the audience, "Which of the 32 Beethoven sonatas do you want me to play? I have them all memorized." What a brat. Spoiled brat. Hey, I'm kidding. I love his music. I was just joking. He had a right to be. This is the Étude en forme de valse. I think it's a very funny piece. It could be the background to a silent movie or a Looney Tunes. It would be perfect for that. So here it is, and then we'll do some gospel and call it a day. So thank you very much for listening. I'm going to play now maybe a couple short gospel improv things that I do. First one is called Peace in the Valley. You may have heard it. It's by Thomas A. Dorsey, who was originally from Georgia, and he was a blues musician. His name was Georgia Tom, actually. He moved to Chicago and became a gospel musician, but the style of his music is still very influenced by the blues. And at that time, that was, like I was talking about Paganini, it was controversial at the time. Now it's just classic gospel. But in the 30s and 40s, when he was writing these, it was kind of unusual. So he wrote Peace in the Valley for Mahalia Jackson, who's the greatest, I think the greatest singer who ever lived. And the story is that he was actually taking a train through the Midwest somewhere, Ohio or somewhere, and he heard that the Second World War had broken out. And so the music just came to him to write There Will Be Peace in the Valley. Anyway, seems appropriate today as well. I hate to say that, but so here it is. I could do maybe one or two more. I mean, do you like the more upbeat gospel, or do you want a little more mellow? What do you want? I mean,
Well, that was pretty good. I had the pleasure of meeting with Bill Jackson.
Really?
I was in her apartment when I was in college.
Wow.
And my college choir trustee
You went to Tuskegee.
went on spring break, and Chicago was one of the places where we stopped, and we went to visit different people, and they took us to many of those apartments. We had snacks and stuff.
That's like, I think, that you mentioned that, so, I like doing arrangements. I do my own arrangements, and Mahalia Jackson's voice to me is, I think it's the best, she's the best musician. I don't like to rank, but I think if I have to choose, she's the best. And I'm trying to do some arrangements for solo piano. And maybe I'll close with this. This is not an upbeat one at all, but this is my arrangement based on her singing Precious Lord. Very famous. And this, she sang it at Martin Luther King's funeral. She sang it, I think, maybe at the March on Washington or something. But this is a song that she owned, really. It's also by Dorsey. And Dorsey wrote it when his wife died in childbirth. It's just so unimaginable. And so I think I will close with this, and to try to replicate what she does with the voice, because I was mentioning with the whole program today, I play the piano, but I'm not always satisfied with what it can do, because the piano, my beloved teacher said it's just a box with buttons, and you have to make it talk. And that's hard. I'm still learning. I don't know how to do it yet. And one of the ways is to study singers. So anyway, maybe I'll close with that and try to, but thanks for sharing that. I might share that story if you don't mind, because that's incredible that you met her. What was she like? I mean, was she?
She was pretty quiet that night. It was pretty late. We had a concert, so it was after the concert. We went after the concert, so she was pretty ragged out, but she pretty much just sat and we just saw her like, ooh, look, oh, wow. We never asked her to sing anything. She was tired, so it was just to be there.
Well, that's amazing. So, well, I'll close with this, and thank you all for coming. So. guess we'll close there. I think it's been, oh wow, that's a long time. I lose track of time. I'm sorry. Thank you very much to Erica for having me, for coming. I enjoyed.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much. Thanks. All right.